Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast, which is dedicated to nonprofit leaders who are passionate about making a difference. I'm your host, Haley Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on a journey of growth, inspiration, and transformation. At Lead with Heart, we believe that leading with heart means embracing empathy, compassion, and authenticity in every aspect of our work. It's about putting people first, fostering genuine connections, and creating a positive impact that goes beyond numbers and metrics. In the nonprofit world, it can often feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The challenges are immense, and the road can be lonely. But here, you're not alone. This podcast is a community where we support each other, share our stories, and learn together. Each episode will dive into personal and professional development topics tailored specifically for nonprofit leaders. From innovative fundraising strategies and effective team management to self-care practices and leadership insights, we're here to provide you with practical strategies that you can apply to your life and work. My goal is to empower you, elevate your leadership, and engage your heart in all that you do. I want to help you navigate the unique challenges of the nonprofit sector with confidence and resilience, so you can continue to create meaningful change in the world. So whether you're driving to a meeting, taking a break, or winding down for the day, tune in and join us on this journey. Together, we'll discover what it truly means to lead with heart. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on the Lead with Heart podcast. I am your host, Haley Cooper, and I am so honored to have Carol, a visionary who saw the immense potential in linking business and social issues way back in the early 80s. Carol spearheaded the walking movement for Rockport Shoe Company, transforming it into a household name and growing the business exponentially. Beyond Rockport, her initiatives have touched and saved millions of lives through campaigns like the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women, Avon's Breast Cancer Crusade, and My Special Aflac Duck, among many others. Carol has raised over $5 billion for social causes, proving that business can indeed be a powerful force for good. Well, welcome to the show, Carol.
Oh, thank you, Haley. I am thrilled to be here, and I love your podcast.
Can you share what inspired you to create the walking movement in the early 80s, and how did you envision this initiative transforming both the brand and the health habits of consumers?
I would say that in the early 80s, I was in Boston, and there's a lot of shoe companies there, and we're working with the Timberland company and helping to really raise their profile. And then the owner of the Rockport Shoe Company came to me and said, "Can you do that for us?" And the shoes were street shoes with a Nike inner. They were absolutely cutting edge technology, way ahead of their time, and not particularly pretty. And so we tried traditional marketing, introducing them to editors and such, and they just fell flat. But then my superhuman power is connection making. And so one day I'm talking to Bruce Cates, and we're going to go to the shoe show. I'm going to have these really big pictures of people walking. And he kept talking about walking. And in those days, nobody walked for health and fitness. And so I began to tune in to his commentary, and then I did some research. And I looked into the marketplace. Was anybody promoting walking for health and fitness? And no, it was a totally open position. And so I love Bruce because he was terrific about building the shoes and selling the shoes, but he wasn't a great marketer per se. And so every time I took an idea to him, he'd go, no, no. And the first thing I always say to my employees and my friends and to any of your listeners, the first no is just opening a door to a yes. And a great salesman gets 9 no's before they really, really have their success. So long story short, we said to Bruce, you could position yourself as a walking shoe company. And so he said, well, okay, maybe. So we looked, were there any books? No. Were there any great photography? No. Were there any sort of fitness tests? No. So we started investigating that, but we also knew we needed to be validated and to be credible. So we went to the American Podiatric Medical Association. They were giving seals of approval to various foot powders and medicines and things like that. And we said, could you give a seal of approval to a walking shoe? Whoa, that's really interesting. I don't know. They go back to the board and they say no. Of course, I kept pushing it forward. And ultimately, they gave the first seal of approval to Rockport shoes for health and fitness from American and Podiatric Medical Associations. That's the beginning. Then we started, we got some spokespeople, and we started making this, positioning it for health and fitness. We had to romance walking. So we had a fellow who walked across the country 11,208 miles in almost a year. And he had 3 simple messages. This is pre-internet. This is pre-digital. This is like in the olden days where, you went to a rotary phone and you called. And anyways, his name was Rob Sweetgall. And basically, he had 3 messages. Eat properly, don't smoke and walk. And what we did, though, because there had been walkers and runners around the country, we had him fly back to Massachusetts to a medical facility where we had a physician who was an expert in sports medicine, and he studied his health parameters for walking. So long story short, he did this 8 times. When he finished, we had a book. We had an accommodation from Health and Human Services, and we began to create the content to show that walking was great for your fitness and your health. Then we created a walking library and research institute. Then we created a walking test that was on Good Morning America, and it got thousands and thousands of requests for the test. And then we did books, et cetera, et cetera. Rockport grew from 25 million to 250 million in about 4 years. Wildly successful. We had all the content. We're on the cover of all these magazines and TV shows and everything. Bruce, every time I gave him an idea, he said no. And I said yes. And he said no. And I said yes. And ultimately, he was going to go public, but Reebok had an eye on them. They wanted to keep growing. Reebok acquired Rockport. And then we started working with Reebok. But it was a wonderful experience working with a visionary leader.
Yeah, I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing. And before we hopped on this call, something that we mentioned we wanted to talk about was partnership. Yeah, and you mentioned that you've written a book about partnerships, specifically how it relates to nonprofits, which is my leaders. And it sounds like when you were building out this program and scaling the business, partnership was a really important aspect of that, whether it was like the American Podiatry Association, Human Health Services, like you said, Reebok. So can you talk a little bit more about like how partnerships can really position organizations to scale, and also what's the nitty-gritty of having those conversations to build those partnerships?
That's such a great question because companies are good at something. They can create the product, but they usually do not have the subject matter expertise and the credibility not to be trying to sell, but to engage and educate and create. We always say when we link our companies with a social issue. Now, Rockport put purpose. It wasn't called purpose in those days. We called it cause branding, but today it's called purpose. What does a company stand for beyond the bottom line that's based in humanity? And Rockport stood for walking. But they had to find, yes, we had the fellow who walked around the country, so that helped us out. But once that was done, and we were working with the University of Massachusetts Medical Center, we then wanted to begin to spread the exciting news that walking was great for health and fitness. So we had to partner. So we partnered with the YMCA of the USA. We gave them walking tests. We gave them walking brochures. We also work with local walking organizations. And so you utilize the partnership. It must be, number one, it needs to be equal. And it needs to win for the not-for-profit and win for the for-profit. And we knew that was the case, but we really had to educate the marketplace, both sides of the equation. So in 2010, I wrote a book called Breakthrough Not-for-Profit Branding with three of my other colleagues at my firm at the time, which was called Cone Inc. And we had over 1,000 pages of transcripts. We interviewed all sorts of different size not-for-profits as well as for-profits, and came up with us a very simple way a not-for-profit needed to step up to position itself. We talked about the head, the heart, and the hands, and how it had to appeal to its constituents with those three deliverables and such. So we introduced the book. It's amazing. This many years later, it is still a great book in terms of educating not-for-profits that you really need to understand what's your position, what's your key message, what are you bringing to a corporate relationship, how do you deliver on your content, on your engagement, and then how do you measure? And so that was a key seminal moment for us. But we also got to work, which was really exciting. After Rockport, we worked with Reebok and we linked them to human rights with the Amnesty World Tour. We then worked with Avon and we worked with breast cancer was the issue we chose. And then I will tell you, in the early 90s, nobody talked about breasts. It was taboo. And we linked Avon with all sorts of different not-for-profits. The interesting thing is that at that time, the American Heart Association came to us and they said, we want you to do what you did for Reebok and Rockport and Avon for us. Because at the time, American Heart Association was all about men in white coats and men's hearts. And their CEO, a fabulous guy named Cass Wheeler, said, I have this thing called the Passion Project. We need to appeal to women in terms of our not-for-profit, but we don't know how to do that. And so we got together with them, and it's a very funny story because I got 3 calls and I kept saying, no, we only work with for-profits. And finally, this wonderful woman, Kathy Rogers, flies to Boston. She says, look, I want to convince you you can do this. And then we set out to do it. The outcome of it, which took about 2 years, was Go Red for Women, which became a seminal branded signature cause initiative, if you want to call it that raised almost $1 billion to American Heart. But it taught, most important, women what to look for in terms of the potential signs of a heart attack, because very different from men. And so this spread like wildfire all across the country. And I'm so excited because the first Friday in February, you will see TV anchors all dressed in red talking about heart disease and Go Red for Women. And this initiative, because the way we approach it, we have a process that creates built to last initiatives. That program is over 22 years old. And so the same thing for PNC, we connected them with early childhood education. No company in the country had ever done it. And then we worked with wonderful not-for-profits such as the National Head Start Association, Fred Rogers, Donors Choose, and then ultimately we brought in Sesame Workshop because they had so much wonderful content, the characters. And that program this year just celebrated its 20th anniversary. So when you find the right for-profit, because all not-for-profits want the arms, the legs, the reputation, the awareness, and funds, you need to find a win. What works? So I always say it's like, what are my goals for the not-for-profit? What are the for-profits goals? What are the for-profits goals? And then you look at where the shared goals are, and that's the magic of the partnership.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. Yeah, I love this conversation. I was at a conversation on last Friday, and we were talking about they thought building partnerships with corporations was the way to go. When you look at the giving pie from Giving USA, corporations are only 4% of the
Right.
giving pie, but there is unique opportunities to partner with them. And I think nonprofits have to be educated on how to do it well. Because like you said, there's a tit for tat, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to have those certain guidelines and expectations that you are going to deliver on as a nonprofit, and then almost like an MOU between the two. So how can nonprofits really set up their branding for a corporate? Like, what are the key characteristics that a nonprofit has to offer to partner with a corporation?
Well, one, it's really important to understand the company. And so understand the company's business. So read their social impact report, look at the CEO's letter, understand the products and the services and their distribution channels. Because again, you want to create a win. So that's the first thing. The second thing for a not for profit, there's so many, for example, now in breast cancer or in helping children with autism or all sorts of other areas. So you really need to understand your crisp positioning and what are the assets that you can bring to the table to the corporation or the brand. And you want to start creating a relationship, you know, what does the company need? What do you need? Again, that's my goals, your goals, shared goals. And you want to create a relationship and demonstrate that you can support an initiative if you get together. I'll give you a great example I'm very proud of is that we worked with Macy's about 2 years ago. And Macy's has tremendous history of giving. And every single month they would have a new campaign based on, for example, Macy's was a huge supporter of the American Heart Association in February, but they have evolved over time. Macy's developed a new social purpose called Mission Everyone, and they really wanted to support underrepresented designers and youth with school and education and also underrepresented suppliers. And they committed billions of dollars to underrepresented supply chain. Great. It's called Mission Everyone. And they also evolved because their customers were evolving. So they came to us and they said, our largest giving period, holiday, we are going to evolve from our current wonderful not-for-profit partner to someone that truly can live up to and support our mission, everyone, and who the constituents are. And so they said, you've got 2 months, figure it out. And because we've done this work for decades, we said, okay, it's a little tight time frame, but we'll do it. Wonderful people at Macy's. And so we came up with a criteria. And because they wanted to find partners in the not-for-profit world that could support their over 500 stores in all sorts of different markets, that basically cut out most of the not-for-profit world. But we came up with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Girls and Boys Clubs, and City Year as the three that we targeted through criteria with Macy's. And then we went to them and we said, very transparently, and I love this process, here's the criteria, here's what we need to do, write a proposal. Because the end game was ideally 3, 5, 10 years of relationship with Macy's that could raise $4 million, $5 million during holiday. And it was wonderful. And each one of those organizations, they put very thoughtful proposals together. Again, understanding what Macy's needs were, what they could do in their local markets, what they could deliver. Then ultimately, they made presentations, and we were a silent listener in the presentations. And then Macy's selected Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And lots of reasons for that. It fit brilliantly with their Mission Everyone. But they also had a fabulous new CEO, Artis Stevens, who has just taken Big Brothers and Big Sisters, really advanced them forward. So it was a wonderful relationship, but it was approached in a business lens, not the, oh, please give me a grant for $1 million lens. Here's my hand, fill my hands with money. That's the deep change that has happened. And you don't have to be as Big Brothers and Big Sisters. There are hundreds of thousands of smaller not-for-profits. And I'll give you another example, which was great. We represented the smallest client we had called Experience Camps. And Experience Camps was this amazing idea. It was a 2-week for free camp experience for children who had lost a parent or a loved one. And this would transform because these kids' hearts and their souls were broken. coming to a place with fresh air and such, finding friends that had the same experience really helped them. We were working with experience camps and we said, well, why don't you have a new offering for children of color? And this was post COVID because we knew that unfortunately, people of color were over indexed, unfortunately, in terms of their parents dying because of health inequities. They said, that's a really interesting idea. Then I did something that I love, which is my other superhuman power, which is, well, it's connection making. I introduced them to Quest Diagnostics because Quest was one of our clients. Quest has a program called Quest for Health Equity, and they wanted to reach in a very new way children of parents who had passed of color. And they got together, and it's a beautiful experience because these kids just have not had anybody help them through these really dire moments. They were only 4 million-ish in revenue. So very small versus Macy's very large.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those stories. And when you talk about partnership, you mentioned this a little bit about outcomes and like, how do you set up what you're going to track from the get-go of the partnership? And then, like you said, like an experience camp that's relatively small and probably has limited resources, even with a $4 million budget. Like, how do organizations really set themselves up to track those outcomes and have that accountable and transparent relationship?
That's a great question. First of all, we always say, set up the metrics as you're setting up the relationship. Don't do it at the end. You will not have the information you need. And so I would suggest to any of your listeners who are not-for-profits, they should have a scope of work or they should have a contract and really outline what are the deliverables they're going to do, in what time, for what amount of funds, donations or in kind or such, and or volunteerism from the company, and then how are you going to measure it? Experience Camp did more qualitative. One, it was the amount of requests from children from underrepresented communities, and then they have the very strong initiative. Once the kids leave camp, they don't just let them go. They are constantly supporting them in cohorts in their local cities, and they're having phone calls and emails and things like that. So part of it was the qualitative measure. But I'm really glad you asked this because we just created, one of the things I did since I started shaping this field and doing public-private partnership work since 1983, nobody believed me. We had a few of our great successes with Rockport and Reebok and Avon, but we started doing research in 1993 to educate the marketplace, for-profits, not-for-profits. I wrote the book. I have my own podcast called Purpose 360. So really educating the marketplace. And our most recent piece of research is more, the outcome was a measurement tool called EPIC. And EPIC stands for Employee Purpose IQ. It is for-profits. We didn't create it for not-for-profits, but certainly what it measures is the company's employee engagement. So often the employees are volunteering with a not-for-profit partner. They may be creating products or services for their not-for-profit partner. So EPIC measures all sorts of different levels of the engagement. And it provides, and I love this, it provides a dashboard to a company. Where is their purpose and their social impact work, their relationship with a not-for-profit? Where is it working well? Where isn't it working geographically? It's also, what is the knowledge of the employees? How committed are they to the cause that the company has with its not-for-profit partners? So it's a wonderful product that truly helps to measure with a dashboard that anyone can take into their boss and say, look where we are in terms of employee awareness, employee retention, employee loyalty, relationship with a not-for-profit, reputation, et cetera. Measurement's really critical. And the more that you can measure, now you can build into your relationship with your for-profits, you can build in money to measure. And the more sophisticated not-for-profits are building that into their contracts, so you don't have to just do it yourself. And when you start talking measurement to your corporate partner or your brand, they're going to say, oh, here's a savvy not-for-profit. They understand that I need to measure. They understand that I need stories and content to put into my social media, my social impact report. That's the way you want to get the best partners. And also the other thing is not-for-profit partners and for-profits try and create something that has longevity. I know it's really hard. So many companies now will only in their grants, they only give you a year. Foundations sometimes can do multi-year. That's a challenge for not-for-profits. But when you invest in the relationship and you really understand what does success look like for you, Mr. or Ms. brand or company, the better you will be perceived as sophisticated and that you can deliver.
Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today. Ooh, that's so good. I love that you built out that dashboard for corporations to really understand how their employees and the company is engaging in social purpose. And on the flip side, helping nonprofits really engage in that long-term sustainable relationship. And really, it's not just about that transactional of, you give me this, I'll give you that. It's really about everything in our lives is about relationships, specifically when it comes to nonprofits and fundraising and partnerships. It's about mastering that art of relationship.
Totally agree. Absolutely agree. It's going from, to your point, transactional to transformational.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier that when you were working with the American Heart Association, they talked about how they wanted to start reaching out to women because of heart issues that women have. So how do you approach creating a campaign that resonates across different cultures and achieves such a significant impact?
This isn't the sexy part, but if you are insanely curious like I am and my colleagues are at Carol Cohn on Purpose, we love to research. We love to go deep. And so to think about whatever initiative you're creating, it's like a tall office building, but you need to have all of the infrastructure, knowing what the land is, knowing how large, how many stories do you want to have to create? You've got to create the framework, the basement, all of that really well. And it starts with, again, knowing what are your objectives? What are the objectives, again, of the corporation? Doing a lot of research in terms of interviews. So we do something called IDIs, which are individual discovery interviews within the company, within the not-for-profit perhaps, also with subject matter experts outside of the company. So doing interviews and getting nuanced information, because I will swear on a stack of Bibles that people in the company who may be your target don't all agree on what they're trying to accomplish. And they don't understand the sophistication that a great partnership can deliver. PNC, Grow Up Great, and its relationship with Sesame Workshop or Donors Choose or National Head Start Association. So doing your homework, it's not sexy, but if you have a curiosity gene, it is a great journey. So you can also do, that's secondary research. We call it desk research. You can also do primary research. So you can do social media analysis. You can do a media scrub for traditional media. So you can also just do original research with your potential recipient. So that's how you can create a great initiative. That's the way to start.
Yeah, I really like that approach. And I like the idea of the individual listening and really understanding like how what your partnership looks like resonates with people in the company, because how you envision it might be different than how other people perceive it. And so I think it's really important to get that buy-in, like we talk a lot on this podcast, before you launch something, whether it's on the corporate side or the nonprofit side or whatever partnership it is. Get that buy-in, because then people will be more committed to delivering on whatever is in the scope of work.
One of the things is one of our secret sauces for whether we're working with a large not-for-profit or a for-profit is that we do something called a level set. And a level set is basically, it's about an hour, it's about a half an hour, and then a Q&A, bringing together all the senior people that are going to have to bless and engage your relationship. They're going to have to bring their assets to the table, dollars, people, in kind, et cetera. So the level set is basically, it's a, what is the state of the art in not-for-profit branding, not-for-profit relationships, or the issue, what does social impact look like? And it is so powerful to share. And what you do is that you show case studies. You ask the company, well, who do you admire? Everybody admires Patagonia. Everybody wants to see Patagonia. Chipotle is wonderful. We work with Campbell and Quest Diagnostics and Whirlpool and others or it might be another not-for-profit. Who's a not-for-profit that you really admire? Showing it, deconstructing it, showing how it's been built, how it's created programs, how it's measured, and then the impact on the recipients, and getting everybody that needs to support you on a level playing field. That is so, I tell you, it took me about 15 years to realize if you can't get them to the level place, you'll never be successful. It'll be a cacophony versus a symphony.
Oh, that is so good. I love that idea of the level set. And like you said, then everyone will work in harmony together.
Exactly.
And it's so important to, and it takes a lot of time to invest in it, but on the front end, obviously, to get everyone together, to have that meeting. But at the end, you're going to get the outcome you want if you invest that time.
A better outcome. Today, companies have to embrace social issues and environmental issues. They have to. They have no choice, especially for Gen Z, because Gen Z expects, if they work for you, they want to see values alignment. What's the company values? What are my values? And how are you investing back in society and as well the environment? Also for retention. And also when you start embedding a true social purpose, or you discover it into your company, it ignites people in such a magical way. And I have been inside companies and I have seen this happen when, again, you have to have C-suite leadership. You have to have ideally the CEO who says, we're going to do this because it is part of our values and our values in action. So this is not going away. I know you've heard of maybe the ESG wars and woke capitalism or DEI. Companies are going backwards. The best and the smartest companies are not going backwards. They may not be talking about it as much, but leaders today, it is no longer command and control. I need to enroll you, Sally, Joe, all sorts of different people at different ages. I need to enroll you in our vision. So collectively, we can bring our best selves to work. And when that happens, magic happens, energy happens, and growth happens. And there's data. I have a ton of data. I've got data with, you've got McKinsey, you've got Deloitte, you've got Accenture, that companies that understand their purpose, live to it, and go forward and have the clarity, they can grow 3 times faster. Their employees stay longer. The innovation that happens is extraordinary. So this is not going away. The challenge is to find something and build it that's authentic, that is inspiring, that is real to your business, your brand, and needs in society. And you find great not-for-profit partners to help you bring it to life.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I see a duck behind you, and I know that you conceptualized and developed an Affleck social robot. And so, what you believe has made it so successful in both the tech world and the lives of the children that it helps?
Thank you for asking, because my special Aflac duck is one of the great successes I've had in my career over 40 years. And simply put, everyone knows the big Aflac duck. If you're from the U.S., and he goes, Aflac, and he's funny, and he's worth $20 billion on the balance sheet. So he was funny, but he wasn't doing anything in society. Now, very quietly, Aflac was donating millions and millions of dollars to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and they actually created an Aflac clinic there for kids with cancer and sickle cell disease. So their chief marketing officer brought us in and said, "You're the genius, Carol. Figure out how to make these two assets work." Now, understand, they didn't talk about their philanthropy because they're very Southern and they're very humble. And so she said, "No, today people need to know what we're doing." Long story short, again, my superhuman power is connection making. I'm having lunch with a friend who's working with some of our clients. His name is Aaron Horowitz, and he has a small company called Sproutel. They make social robots for kids with disease. I said, "Hey, Aaron, what's going on? What's going on?" He tells me about one of his projects, and then he goes, "Carol, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, we're starting to work with Aflac." And at that instant, the social robot idea and a duck crashed together, boom, over my head. Stars were lighting. You couldn't see them, but I was. And he said, "Carol, what's wrong?" And I said, I smiled. I paused. And I said, "We are going to create a social robot duck for Aflac." So we went to Aflac and we did interviews, and we had to come up with 3 different ideas. And we did, but we also had the social robot, and we had designed it on paper. We had Aaron help us with the presentation. So our team decided, the team at Aflac said, "We want to do the social robot. We want to present it to our CEO." We presented to the CEO, Dan Amos, an incredibly prescient man. He came up with the big Aflac duck, renamed the company Aflac. And he was so quiet. And we said, "Oh my God, what's wrong? He doesn't like our idea." He paces the room, and then he turns to us and he says, "That's the best idea I've ever heard." And then he turned around and he said, "And I'm going to take a considerable amount of money from our family foundation to begin this." So he left and we all cheered and whatever. But then the hard work started. And so we spent about a year, and Aaron and his team, because they were a great partner and they're a social enterprise, he interviewed kids as young as 3 and their parents and caregivers and doctors to find out what kids go through on average 1,000 days of really pain and loneliness and such in their treatments with pediatric cancer. The kids said, "We don't want a long neck duck. And we want a duck that purrs." Go figure. "And we want a duck we can talk to and play with and whatever." He designed it, and it took a year. And then we had to have manufacturing and such. It wasn't inexpensive, but it was so amazing. And so we have the duck. And so then I say, well, we've got to go to a very interesting place to introduce him. And everybody said toy fair. No, this is not a toy. This is a technological product. It has motors in it. It has patents pending. It has removable fur because kids might get sick and you have to wash the fur. It talks to you through emojis and gives you the feeling of the emoji of the child's emotion at the time so they can talk to the doctor, the nurse, the caregiver. Quack, quack, quack. I feel bad. Green emoji. Pink emoji. Quack, 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 quack. I'm happy. Anyway, so we introduce it. We go to CES, but before we went there, this is really important. We found out that they had contests for various awards, and there was a category called Tech for a Better World. We didn't think we had a chance. We entered, and of 250 entries, we win. So we go there. There's 5,000 media. There's 200,000 people that go to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. We won Tech for a Better World. We had a little tiny booth with the Sproutel folks. We didn't do a big Aflac booth. We were very consistent with our core. We're helping the children. That was the lead. And we had an amazing show. We had 2 billion impressions in 4 days. We had headlines like, "This is the best invention at the show." We then went from there. We were named one of the top inventions by the Wall Street Journal. We went to South by Southwest, People's Choice. We went to Cannes, where I was on television with the BBC. They called me the Purpose Queen. So I've kept that, but I haven't gotten the tiara. Setting that aside, they loved the Duck One Toucan Lion. But the most important thing, so tons of exposure. 30,000 of these little guys and gals have been donated for free to children in the US, in Ireland, and in Japan, where Aflac has offices and they have their business. And these kids, it's just helping them get through a really hard time. It's also helped with the brand, with recognition, and with their heartfeltness. So it's an amazing sort of thing.
Wow, I was getting chills just as you were telling that story of using the technology for good and creating this thing with buy-in from the kids of what they needed during this hard time in their life. And just to have some comfort of even a silly duck goes a long way. And I love that you were able to use your superpower. I think Connection Queen should be another, it should be another trademark name for you, of just having that like alignment in brands and reflecting on your extensive career and the over 150 purpose programs you've executed. How do you see the role of purpose-driven leadership evolving in today's business landscape? And what advice would you give to companies looking to integrate this idea of social good into their core strategies?
Well, that's another few hours, but let's see if I can do it. If I can do it briefly. And thank you for the Connection Queen. I really appreciate that. What's most important is that when you're a leader of a company, that you see that your job is to serve. That's the shift. You are to serve your employees. You are to serve your customers. You are to serve your supply chains. Servant leaders today, getting rid of the braggadocio and the bragging and the gigantic bonuses that's happening with some CEOs. Truly understanding the first thing when you want to be a purpose at the center company is to truly listen to, and there's a lot, I think there's a theme here, Haley, about listening. Really important, whether you're a not-for-profit or a for-profit. So servant leaders today, who are you serving? How are you serving them? A leader's role today is to provide energy and momentum to their people, because employees, and I've been talking about this for 25 years, way before it was important. Employees are the engine of your organization, and they want to be unleashed. Not, yes, they need to have some direction, but they really want to bring their superhuman powers, whatever they are, their compassion, their genius, their connection making, their innovation to the fore to lead the business forward. So living your values, following your values and your behaviors. And companies, if you just have the standard, oh yeah, it's collaboration and colleagues and joy, forget it. You've got to outline what they mean and how you behave in your organization to bring them to life. And having a social purpose, an environmental purpose, and sticking to it. And you're not going to win all the time. You're not going to reach all your goals. Being transparent and sharing with, again, your employees and then your not-for-profit partners. Bringing in partners. Sometimes when we said to PNC, you're going to partner with Sesame Workshop, they laughed me out of the room. And I went, no, again, get a 9 no, then you get a yes. I said, look, I know this is going to be great. It was $2 million. Don't worry about the price. Just go have a meal. And the folks from PNC went from Pittsburgh. They went to New York. They had a meal. And I knew they would fall in love. Millions and millions of dollars later, all sorts of different programming with Sesame. It's been a love fest. And so again, knowing your values, living your values, and then also ultimately being authentic, which is, you can't fake it anymore. You just can't fake it in this work. And when you get it right, like we got it right for PNC or Aflac or American Heart or all the others we work with, it is magical. And every company today, because of the transparency of the internet and the world being in such disarray, and we're blue states and red states, and it's really hard out there, you want to show your heart, your head in your hands, and it will help. When you have it and you figured it out and it's authentic and it's aligned, it will drive the business forward. I know it will.
Yes, I love that you brought that all together. Well, if people want to follow the work that you are doing, Carol, where can they find you?
Oh, thank you for that. It's very easy. It's Carol at Carol Cone on Purpose, oneword.com. My podcast is Purpose 360. We've done 175 shows and it's fun. I love doing podcasts. I love being on podcasts because you get to create this incredible network of new friends as you to share the knowledge, because this work is not easy. But when you truly do your homework, listen, research, and then be creative and bring in great partners and give them clarity about the relationship, the sky is the limit. That's what's so exciting about this work.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and insights today. I have definitely learned a lot about a whole new industry that I wasn't even trained in or really aware of. And I'm just so grateful that you continue to inspire and demonstrate the profound impact that purpose-driven business strategies can have on society. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Haley. You can tell I will talk about this forever because my goal is to help up-level the purpose of every company, every not-for-profit. And so I appreciate being able to have this conversation with you and keep up your great work, because the smarter we can make our colleagues, the better the outcomes we'll all have.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.